Back when my grandfather opened his first shop, there was about 120,000 shoe repair shops in the United States. And today, 2011, we only have about 6,500 left. Now, what's it going to be like in the future? No one knows that. But I will teach my son the trade. It'll be up to him to see if he decides to keep it. Actually grew up in the industry. I can remember as a small boy sitting actually in the crib in the back of my dad's shop. In fact, I teethed on a piece of leather, and I have the leather to prove it still, believe it or not. And I remember my dad coming into the back certain part of the day. A little radio show would be on, and he'd come in the back and he'd sing with me that little old song, "This Little Light of Mine." And I think that was the happiest time of the day for me at that age, maybe 3 years old. And then as I grew up, I remember all the shoe repairs that were working for him. I just always stood around watching. I'd play, but then I'd get bored and I'd watch and I'd watch. And I watched until I was probably 13, 14 years old, pretty much almost every day after school, on Saturdays. During the summer, I was there almost every day. And when I was about 15 years old, I picked up my first pair of men's shoes, resoled and healed them from start to finish without even stopping, because I watched them for so long. And at about age 15 or 16, I said to myself, well, I know how to do it, so I guess I'll just do this for now. And wanted to go to college and everything, but it was something this came so natural for me because I'd been in it so long. It was just an easy craft for me to do and follow. And of course my father wanted me to do something else, but as time's gone on, I'm really glad this is what I've stuck with, because one nice thing about coming in here every day is I still feel like I'm with my father and my grandfather, and I still feel like they're part of the trade because they're not forgotten. One of the hardest things the industry faces today versus recession from 25 years ago. We have a whole different type of shoe coming into the industry. 25 years ago, we still had plenty of leather shoes to repair, leather soles to repair. Well, today, over 98% of the shoes in this country are imported. 95% come from China. Now, a lot of these materials are man-made, polyurethane, thermoplastic, rubber, PVC, and a lot of these are very inexpensive shoes. Some of them are $45, $50, and a lot of the younger generations buy these and throw them away, wear them out in a year or so and throw them away. Not in every area, but in a lot of areas. And when you think about it, if you buy a decent pair of shoes, really nice pair of shoes, say it costs you $300, $350. You take good care of them, keep shoe trees in them, keep them polished, maintained, resoled and healed. Those shoes are going to last you 15, 20 years. If you go buy a $75, $80 pair of shoes every year or so, and you're throwing them away, add that up over 10 or 15 years. You could have bought 2 or 3 really nice pair of shoes and still had them in your closet. So that's one tip I give for the consumer. Buy a really nice pair of shoes, take care of them, they're going to last you a long time. Plus they're healthier for your feet. Downtown Anderson, unfortunately it's not there anymore. As time moved on, my father moved to Hamilton, Ohio, and had a shop there around 1922. My father was born in 1922. Unfortunately, my father's mother died when my dad was very young. Remember stories my dad used to tell me, like the best one I can remember is when my grandfather would take my dad to work. Well, when you have a toddler in the shop, you can't let him run around because he'll get into the machines and everything else, so he would tack his diaper to the floor. That way he couldn't get into anything. As time moved on, my dad went into the Marine Corps. My father moved to Meridian, Mississippi, and had a shoe repair there. And my father later came to St. Petersburg, Florida, and opened a shop there. They were going to merge and both go to work together in 1963, 1964, when I was born. But then my grandfather had a heart attack and passed away, unfortunately. I never got to meet him. So in 1964 to about 1967, we were in St. Petersburg, Florida. And Joe Blanton was one of the employees at Publix. Used to take his shoes into my dad's store quite often, and asked if he would move his store to Lakeland. They were building the brand new Searstown shopping center. And they wanted a shoe repair shop there that customers could drop their shoes off, go into Publix, pick up their groceries, go back and get the shoes when the shoes were finished. And we were there in Searstown from 1967 until my dad passed away in 1987.
Was the introduction of the first Silver Cup contest sponsored by Shoe Repair Service. The contest drew approximately 100 entries and focused on workmanship, shop management and attractiveness, and merchandising. More than 65 years later, the Silver Cup continues to be a prestigious honor that recognizes excellence in shoe repair craftsmanship and retailing.
After winning the Grand Silver Cup in 2002, we wanted to take things a little further. So back to school I went. Went to Podorthic School. Podorthic School, what is that? Well, it has to do with the feet, of course. We fill prescriptions for doctors, for diabetic footwear, orthotics, many other problems with the foot that you may have. Just come in with a prescription and we fill it. We're board certified and we're state licensed. So, it's not just shoe repair anymore. Anything to do with that foot we can take care of. Thank you.
Not every business is suffering through the downturn. For cobblers, tighter purse strings and less disposable income means a boom in business. Jim McFarland is a third-generation cobbler. He says more customers are dropping off battered shoes at his Lakeland, Florida shop. They're trying to avoid buying new shoes.
We'll just replace this cork area. By the time we sand it smooth and everything, it'll feel the same like it did.
He's seeing everything from Christian Louboutin to Allen Edmonds and says sales for his business have increased by 50% in the last 6 months. These days, shoe craftsmen use modern machinery such as high-speed shoe buffers, steel shoe stretchers, and hydraulic presses. It wasn't always this way. Older generations of cobblers relied mainly on hand tools and slower machines.
This is called a 5-in-1. It's the only tool or machine I have left that was my father's.
Mr. McFarland is among a dwindling number of shoe cobblers left in the U.S. today. He hopes the recession will prompt new and old customers to use shoe repair more often and keep his profession alive. For the Wall Street Journal, this is Sarah Needleman.
Our series of reports in conjunction with our friends at CNBC on this economic meltdown. Tonight the topic is jobs, and we have another grim new number. 667,000 Americans filed for first-time unemployment benefits. Just last week, that's the highest number since 1982. Though it might not seem that way for the newly unemployed, there are businesses that are doing well and industries that are hiring out there. That report from CNBC's Sue Herrera.
Jim McFarland's shoe repair business in South Lakeland, Florida, is thriving, despite a troubled economy.
Instead of going out and buying a new pair of shoes, they're going to bring them in and get them repaired.
You just toss them and buy a new pair.
But in this economy, that doesn't make sense for more and more people who are turning to cobblers to keep their shoes on their feet. You know the cobbler. I do this. This is frugal. This is smart stuff. But look at one Bay Area shop where the business is booming.
It's just one more sign the economy is struggling. New data out today shows that America's service sector declined in November. But there's one old-fashioned service job that seems to be booming these days. As Polk reporter Jennifer Lee explains, consumers are repairing shoes instead of buying new ones.
I'm a third-generation shoe repairman. My grandfather started in 1918. We've been in business 90 years this year.
Jim McFarland is one of very few small business owners not getting trampled on by the economy. In fact, his shoe repair business, McFarland's in South Lakeland, is actually enjoying a little kick from the country's tough financial times.
Some days I do 50 pair in a day.
The reason, new shoes aren't cheap and consumers just aren't spending like they used to.
Instead of going out and buying a new pair of shoes, they're going to bring them in and get them repaired, because they're going to save, if they paid $100, $200 or more for the shoes, they're going to save a lot of money.
And McFarland's shoe repair shop isn't alone.
Same thing everywhere, from LA to New York to Chicago, everything in between. I've got a good friend in St. Louis, and he's busy as ever.
It's hard to say exactly how well the entire industry across the country is doing, but here at McFarland's, business is up about 20% for the year, and all of these shoes waiting to be picked up represent a huge spike in just the last few weeks.
I would say that we're probably right now seeing about a 35 to 50% increase just in 3 weeks.
Jim McFarland is pretty confident the business will keep marching in for some time with no real end in sight for the struggling economy, but he has a hope beyond that horizon.
After all this is over, the consumer and the younger generations learn something from it, that, hey, we're here, use us.
In Lakeland, I'm Jennifer Lee, News Channel 8.
And there must have been
Cobblers around the country are keeping busy as more folks look for ways to get more life out of their shoes. I'm Melissa Segigian with that story in Lakeland coming up.
We'll take a closer look at Melissa's story and a look at this year's must-have electronics just ahead. Stay with us. A few months back, we offered you an old-fashioned idea to help you stretch your dollar, taking your worn shoes to a cobbler. It is a simple solution for savings, and more people are turning to it. Bay News 9's Polk County reporter Melissa Segigian shows us how work is stacking up at shoe repair shops across the country.
Jim McFarland says he can tell a lot about a person by the shoes they wear.
I can tell where they work. I can tell what they do. I can tell if they work in a restaurant. I can tell if they cut hair for a living.
McFarland is a third-generation cobbler. He runs a shoe repair shop in South Lakeland. It's one of the estimated 7,000 shoe repair shops left in the U.S.
It's fading. It's fading away.
Business has been slow over the years. To make up for it, McFarland earned his Fedorfix license and builds custom soles for people with medical needs. But lately, old-fashioned heel and sole replacements are keeping him busy enough.
I'm working 12, 14 hours a day in the last 3 weeks.
McFarland says he hasn't seen so many shoes since childhood in his father's shop.
I can remember when I was a small boy just seeing shoes piled everywhere.
Now shoes are piled on shelves and in baskets in his own shop. He calls it a sign of the times.
People start tightening the straps. Then they realize, hey, you know what? I've got a $100 pair of shoes here or a $300 pair of shoes here. I'm not going to go buy another pair of shoes right now.
These designer heels cost about $500, but McFarland can make them new again for less than 30 bucks. Customers like Jessica Lohman say getting their shoes repaired instead of buying new ones is a simple way to save.
Even though it wasn't the most expensive shoe, doing this makes it last longer.
And with times tough, McFarland says he's finding a new sense of security on the heels of the slumping economy. In Lakeland, Melissa Segigian, Bay News 9.
McFarland has been awarded for his craftsmanship by the Shoe Institute of America. Every year, cobblers from around the world compete by restoring 2 pairs of worn shoes. And he is the only Florida cobbler to ever bring home the Grand Silver Cup.